Hey, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jason Flame, and welcome to the Master Motivation Podcast. It is the day after Christmas, December 26, 2022. I believe today is Boxing Day in Canada. And we've got a great guest here today, guys. Let me introduce you by reading his bio. This is Shannon Ballard, who's been a professional wrestler for the past 24 years. He is a part of a tag team with his twin brother Shane, called the Ballard Brothers, who use a hockey gimmick due to their love for hockey and the movie Slapshot. Shannon has been fortunate to have traveled along with his brother, performing all over the world. He's played hockey since he was 11 years old and was drafted to play Junior A in Canada, and eventually in his 20s became the mascot for the Los Angeles Kings. Ballard has played guitar in a band named Synthetic Mary, and has released numerous albums. He is a proud father of a black belt in American karate and an elite quarterback. He also loves to coach in youth football. He currently owns two businesses, a private investigating and mobile detailing company in Lake Arrowhead. This is
And
Shannon Ballard.
how are you? It's
I'm
very good.
excellent, man.
Very happy to be here. I'm drinking my rain right now. It's giving me the energy to get through it.
There you go. That's a nice plug for Rain. I like that energy drink. Can't drink them as much anymore because I started getting kidney stones, so that's no good.
Oh, well, that's coming up for me. So yeah, I gotta watch. So,
Well, hey, I want to tell a quick story because I've told this story a couple times before. I had Big Schwag, Wagner on the show. I've had some of my coaches in the pro wrestling industry. And Shannon, you may not even know this. I don't know if you know this, but in my 20s, I was going to pursue a career in professional wrestling. I was a martial artist growing up, but I was always a fan of pro wrestling. I got in touch with Big Schwag through mail, U.S. mail. We didn't have email or anything back then. I
right.
sent him a whole application to train at UPW,
Uh,
and he says, "Here's the address. Here's the day. Here's time. Come down. Check it out." I show up to UPW, and I believe it was you or your brother, or maybe you were both in the building at the same time. But I walk in, and I'm getting ready, and I wanted to take class. I wanted to sign up, and I looked, and I was just like, "Holy shit! Like this is real." And I just totally, like, I think I was 25, totally chickened out, totally backed out. Um, Whoever was teaching the class came up to me and said, "Hey, you going to work out today?" And I said, "No, I'm just watching." And then eventually, like 15 minutes later, I think I left. Anyway,
uh,
flash forward like 25 years later, I got introduced to Paul over at MPW, got involved in professional wrestling. And right before MPW was going to close in Moore Park and they were going to move to Chatsworth, me and whoever my tag team partner was at the time, I believe it was Chuck Mercer, were supposed to have a match with you and your brother. And
oh
then
man.
something fell through, and I thought, man, that would have been like the full circle opportunity. But here I have you on the podcast, and I get to tell you that story. So I just thought that would be a great way to start this connection off real quick.
Oh, that's really cool. I wish you would have taken the class. It was, well, back then it was a different ball game because UPW was we were developmental for WWE. So there's a we had a lot of people that we trained who were really good who never. I mean, we knew they wouldn't get a chance because they weren't 6'4" and 260 and all jack. So we just tried to make it teach them as best we could, and we would try to get them on other shows and whatnot. But UPW at that time was very uh, it was a difficult place to be in because everybody
Hmm.
wanted a spot and everybody was vying for it. So had you come
Yeah.
in, you would have taken my spot, so I wouldn't have been there anymore. So it's kind of good that you didn't.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that, but listen, it's a great memory for me, and it's always a great story of how it's never too late. I didn't actually get back to professional wrestling until I started when I was 38 years old,
Yeah,
and so I still got to
I
do it, got to
thought you
live a
were
dream.
38 now.
I'm sorry.
I thought you were 38 now.
I'm 48 now. It's been 10
Oh,
years, so yeah, it's a good time. As a matter of fact, I just had a match on Friday night over at MPW. It was a reunion type show. It was a blast. I
right,
mean, I just
right.
have such a love for professional wrestling since I was a young kid. Just the whole everything about it, and then to actually get in the ring and be able to train was so much fun. So what I want to talk about is how did you get started in professional wrestling? How did you and your brother get involved?
Okay. Yeah, normally, I tend to take stories and make them longer than I should, so I'll try not to do that today because there's a time limit. But we were playing hockey. Uh, we both got injured when we were playing in Canada. We both hurt our knee. It was the same. It was the right knee, and we both got hurt 3 weeks apart. So we came back here, and at the time, they only allowed three 20-year-olds to play junior A. And it was very political. I mean, we should have gotten the spots, but they chose people that had been there and playing with them. Like, it was a cliquey type thing, and that's kind of where politics came involved. Where politics are all over sports, and like youth sports, unfortunately, and all kinds of things. It's just politics, and it never dies. So I got my first taste right. Well, I got a taste when I was a lot younger, but that was a taste that left a really bad taste in my mouth. And so we were playing like semi-pro out in like here in Southern California, and it was just like a headhunting league, and we weren't really enjoying it anymore. And we just one day we just talked. We were 26 or 27. We're like, man, we're not. No one's gonna sign us. No one's gonna pick us up. What are we doing? So we quit. And we needed something violent to fill that void because we had played hockey and we wrestled our whole life and lifted weights. So our friend, we had been fans since we were kids. My dad used to know the destroyer Harry Pearl. He was about 6'6", and my brother and I were deathly afraid of him when we were like 6 years old. So much so when he'd come to the house, we would run and hide from him. One time we actually went and we hid in our parents' luggage because we didn't want to. We were so afraid of this guy, and they could not find us. They got so mad. But so then one day we were watching. My dad was watching wrestling, sitting down on the floor, and he's like, "Hey, come in here." So we came in there. We were still little kids, and he's like, "Do you know who that is?" And we're like, "No." And the guy wore a mask, and he's like, "Come on, just look at him." We're like, "No." And he's like, "It's my friend Harry," and we didn't believe him. And then, like maybe a month or two later, that guy Harry Pearl came over again to the house, and he knocked on the door, and my dad was like, "Go answer the door," and he had his mask on, and we answered the door. We jumped back. We were all scared, and then we were literally on each leg. We wouldn't let him go. Like by the end of the night, we were just like we were captivated by this guy. So then from there, we started watching it with my dad, and we've always had a love for it. Actually, in hockey, me and my defensive partner, we had our defensive line. We were called the Midnight Express, but we tried to be like the Rock and Roll Express. So we would tie bandanas around our like leg pads and stuff, and they'd go flying off on the ice, and we'd get a penalty for that. But after we had stopped playing hockey, our friend Brian was watching. It was like AIWA wrestling. It was like a local. It was on local TV. And he called us up, and we used to have matches on the 4th of July at our house. Me and my brother would just beat each other up for everybody. So he's like, "Man, you guys could do better than these guys on here. You should try out." So I called up the city of Maywood where they had it. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was talking to the promoter. His name is Ed Aarons. So Ed said, "Hey, I'll put you through to Alex Knight. He's our trainer." So I talked to Alex, and Alex said, "Yeah, why don't you guys come down and I'll give you a look." So me and my brother went down there, and we just beat each other up, like literally for 3 hours, beat each other up. And afterwards, he didn't say anything. He's just like, "Okay, well, thanks for coming out." So on the drive home, my brother and I were like, "Well, at least we gave it a shot. That was all right." And then 3 days later, Alex called back and he said, "Hey, I saw talent in you guys that I have never seen. I'll train you for free. As long as you if you guys make it or do anything, you guys put me at, make sure that you say I'm your trainer." So that would be good, and that would be helpful for me. So we would train, but we'd go to like a really bad part of LA. We'd have to set the ring up, and then we train for 3 hours, and then we'd have to tear it down. And this is me and my brother. So, I mean, it was a process. When people complain these days about putting up and setting up the ring, I mean, we had to do it by ourselves every single day. It took 4 hours total to do that at the beginning and then the end. So that's how we started. And then it took off from there. And we weren't even a tag team. Like our first year, like we did lucha libre, like our first like year and a half of wrestling. And I was always a bad guy or a rudo, and I would wear a mask. And my brother was always a technico, the good guy, the baby face. And then we went to this league where Paul got his idea, or that's where we met Logan X or Paul, and it was called before MPW. It was called boy, all these leagues. I'm trying to remember what the names are. It was called IZW. It was in Simi Valley, and these guys, the Haystack Brothers, wanted me and my brother to wrestle them. So we did. We just wore singlets because we had never teamed before. And then someone there suggested, like we were talking about hockey with this guy, and he's like, "Why don't you guys like do a hockey gimmick?" And then we had the Chiefs jerseys already. So as soon as we put those jerseys on, we put on the foil and the glasses. Literally, like in wrestling, it was a whole different level. Like we were booked like 4 days a week. We were traveling all over the place. Like our wrestling career like skyrocketed as soon as we did that because it was natural for us. It was something that nobody else was doing besides like the Goon, who I didn't even think really played hockey, and the guy in WWE. So it was it elevated our wrestling career, and you know we owe a lot to the Hanson brothers for letting us take their gimmick. And I'm not talking about the Hanson brothers that sing bop. I'm talking about Top Shop.
Yeah, you know this is great because if everybody's been listening for a bit and you heard the beginning of the story was the fact that you were injured. You were injured, and so you quit hockey, and then you needed something to fill that void, and that void was pro wrestling. And growing up a fan of wrestling and seeing it and watching it and loving it, you talked about you needed something violent. You know, growing up with a twin brother. Right now, did you have any other brothers, any other siblings that you grew up with?
Yeah, we two older brothers, but they're half brothers. Like my with different dad. My mom was married before. I mean, they're like 10 years apart from us, so they're still with us, fortunately.
Yeah.
So yeah, two older brothers, but we weren't super close. Like we started doing amateur wrestling, like freestyle wrestling, because my older brother did, and he was like he was really good. He actually was going with the Olympic team to Australia, and then he just he didn't have his head on straight. He was doing bad things he shouldn't have been doing at the time, and for him partying and getting drunk, you know, doing all those things that the youth like to do, that was more important to him. So we kind of actually learned from that what not to do, which was kind of good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, I think that I often say this to my students. I say this to my kids for sure. I said you can learn a lot by watching other people. You can learn what to do and mimic those things, or you can learn what not to do and the things that you want to stay away from. But you know, growing up with brothers and growing up, you know, all boys. I mean, you know, it sounds like you had a rough and tumble upbringing in a way, because if you were drawn to hockey and you were drawn to professional wrestling, that contact, and now you know your son's a martial artist, which we'll talk about, you know, just that physical aspect. You know, what about the physical aspect of professional wrestling did you love so much? What else drew you to that?
Well, it kind of like there's so many aspects that go into being a professional wrestler. I mean, you have to be an actor. You have to be like, I mean, if you want to go places, you got to be a good talker. You've also got to manage yourself in a way where no one's going to take advantage of you. Pro wrestling is a very dirty, cutthroat business that people will cut your throat in a second to get that spot. And out of wrestling for as many years as I have, I could probably count, you know, on my right hand how many friends I still have in the wrestling industry, because you find out who is real and who is fake. Mm-hmm. So that aspect I did not really appreciate, but you have to protect yourself, and you learn from that on how people are and who people are. Mm-hmm. And that was like that was something that I was very proud that I was able to cut out people from my life that who were only there to get places because we were able to take them there and that
Mm-hmm.
sort of thing. But the physical aspect that I like, I just like the artistry of it. I mean, wrestling is an art. It's an art form. I mean, you've got to punch somebody in the face, but you've got to make it so you don't break anything on them or you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, and there's always that line of believability that you wanna cross and not cross,
Mm-hmm.
and it's artistic doing that. It takes a lot of skill and a lot of self control to do that. I mean, my poor brother, we got stuck in there with Nathan Jones. You know who he is?
Yeah, I do.
Nathan Jones, and then John Heidenreich, who was 6'10", and they were doing an audition match for WWE. So they put him in there with us, and they just panicked. And the guy literally just picked my brother up. My brother didn't even jump, just picked him up as Nathan Jones and threw him down, almost knocked him out.
Oh.
Because like he didn't have control. He panicked and everything. But that's just I think I appreciate mostly like the art form of it, like the artistry.
Yeah, definitely. It's coming from a martial arts background and going into the professional world. The physical aspect was always very easy to me. It was very easy to learn, the moves and memorize the spots and this and that. But one thing that was hard for me, and I was just talking about this with a friend of mine, Danny Devine, Danny Cleary,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I said, Danny, you like he's got such a brain for like the storytelling and the whole, like you said, the art of it, and that was, I always kind of struggled with that. I could feed off the audience, but it was kind of a struggle to understand how to tell that perfect story. And again, coming from a martial arts background, I'm sure there's plenty of times I panicked. I mean, I've had more than enough people tell me, you're just a little more snug than most people, but I kind of like it. I like it that way when people are that way with me. Way easier to sell when people are a little more snug.
Yeah. Same here. I mean, we're very snug. I mean, borderline stiff, but it's very safe. Like so we and that's how we like it as well. And
Mm-hmm.
you had mentioned something about spots. So we were fortunate enough. We never had problems remembering spots because our first year and a half, almost 2 years, were all lucha libre. So it was all one spot. We would do 3 falls. So we'd have to remember all these spots for fall 1, for fall 2, and then fall 3. And so when we started doing American wrestling, we're like, oh, there's only 1 fall. Oh, you only want to do that. You sure you don't want to do a lot more? Just that. We were fortunate in the fact that we had we had no problem memorizing things once we made the transition. Thanks to Lucha Libre. But the storytelling in Lucha Libre is terrible. But I will say I had developed, like, for our training, for storytelling is the biggest thing. And I'll tell you a story, and I'm going to drop a name right here. John Cena was one of the guys that we had helped train, and he would come back once he made it to WWE, he would come back and to UPW, and he would just watch. But he hated Rick Bassman. Just like Rick Bassman did him dirty. And I could get into that a little later if you want, or not if you don't want. But so he came to one of our classes, and all of our students were all excited. They're like, "Oh man, I'm gonna I want to impress John Cena." So they're doing all of these like crazy moves and crazy spots for him. And eventually he came in the ring to say something. He said, and this is a lesson that if any younger kids or guys that like to do a lot of spots and don't really like to tell the story so much, this might help them out. He came in the ring, and this kid, his name was Ryan, and he was really talented. I mean, if he would have stuck with it, he would have been really good. He probably would have been like in AEW now, but he didn't like follow through with it. But so he came in the ring and he said, "Yeah, kid, you did some things I could never do." He did like a shoulder in the corner and then back flipped out of it and did another shoulder and then ran up the kid and then ran down his back. He goes, "I could never do anything like that." He goes, "But I know when to do this and in my bank account is over $1 million. So basically, what he was saying is like all you need to do is you need to tell the story and know when to do what you're supposed to do, and not throw everything in there just to throw it in there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like adding too much to a stew, you're going to ruin it.
Right. Right. No, definitely. Let's go back a little bit. So we talked a little bit about how you kind of broke in. Alex Knight was your first trainer, I believe you said, and you had to set up the ring every day. And it's so funny because Danny and I talk about this with new students now, and I don't know, we constantly talk about how nobody really wants to put in the work, but they want all the spotlight.
Oh,
They want to they want to just show up and be on the card, but they don't want to do quote pay your dues, right? They
yeah,
just want to be there and they want to get all the accolades. But you spent 4 hours setting up a ring, getting in training for a few hours. Like you put an enormous amount of time into it, right? Once
yeah.
you started getting that training, you did the lucha libre, and you went into the different federations, here and there. How did you end up in UPW?
Um, we would do lucha libre with a guy named Aaron Aguilera, the Hardcore Kid.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like this 6'7" guy who loved lucha libre, and we would base for him. Like we were the only ones strong enough to base him. So he would give us like this 6'7" guy giving us head scissors and jumping off the top and giving us head scissors from there. So he went to UPW and he wanted to have an impressive match. So he asked if I would go down there and if I would wrestle him, so that because he was already kind of in because of his size. So
Mm-hmm.
then they saw me, and Chavo Guerrero was there, and he was watching, and he came up to me and he goes, "Oh man," he goes, you carried that whole match. That was all on you. He goes, I'm going to tell the promoter that he should watch out for you more so than the other guy. I was like, "Oh, don't say that. The other guy's my friend. He's the one who brought me down there." He goes, "No," he goes, "I'll just tell him." So he told him, and then Rick had heard of that I had a twin brother, so he asked us both to come down. It just kind of started from that. Like we
Mm-hmm.
just started doing shows for them, and they had nothing but huge jack bodybuilders that couldn't really wrestle. So Shane and I would go down there, and we would make it like, I mean, we would have a decent match with them, and the other guys would appreciate it because they were learning off of it. So then he just put us on the roster after that. And then soon after that, like maybe a year later, we got the training position, and then Tom Howard left, so I got the head training position,
Mm-hmm.
which was nice because I got to train a lot of guys that are in WWE now.
Yeah. Now, how many years had you been in the business prior to being at UPW?
2 or 3.
2 or 3. And was that mostly where are you guys from? Were you from Southern California already?
Well, we were living here, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like I will tell you this, like I've played music for a long time. I played hockey for a long time. Same with my brother. Nothing in my life came more natural to me than pro wrestling. It just like literally like that.
Yeah.
So like within like 2 years, we were already training people, and we were
Mm-hmm.
self-taught. Like Alex Knight, he didn't really like train us. He would just like watch us, and then he would throw in like, "Hey, maybe you should do this instead of that." But we didn't even know that you were supposed to work the left side of the body. So our very first big break, we got to wrestle the Bushwhackers. Remember them? The guys, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He was so nervous, and I'm grabbing his right arm, and he keeps going, "Wrong arm, mate." And I had no idea what he was talking about because we didn't know any of this stuff yet. So
Mm-hmm.
then once we got into UPW, there was a guy named Kevin Quinn. And he kind of took him and Chris Daniels kind of took us under their wing a little bit, and then we started learning from them, and then we were able to develop like our own system of training, and then everybody else started copying that.
So you actually had an opportunity to wrestle in the WWE within your first couple of years.
Yeah, we started in 1998,
Mm-hmm.
and then we went to UPW late 1999. Like we started in the very beginning of '98, And then
Hmm.
in 2000 we were already signed to developmental.
Wow. Wow. And how long did that last?
Like 3 or 4 years. It was probably 3 years, because then Rick lost his developmental. Like it was like maybe 2003, he lost his developmental contract. So we went to 01 in Japan. We went there instead
Yeah.
because
Talk about that a little bit. Talk about wrestling in Japan, how different that was than your lucha libre style and American wrestling.
well, mistake, since this is a motivational podcast, I'm gonna use some mistakes that I made that hopefully other people could maybe learn from. Is we went when we went to Japan, we were so excited. We used to love, like, it was called Michinoku Pro. I mean, the very spotty Japan stuff. Like, we weren't really into the really stiff, beat each other up. We liked the fact that they could do these amazing matches and they never made mistakes or anything. And then we figured out that the reason why they don't make mistakes is they go on tour for like a month. Like Michinoku Pro, and they moved to Dragon's Gate after that. I don't know if you heard of them. So they'll go on tour for a month and they'll do the same exact match, and they'll take things out here or there that doesn't work. And then when it comes time to the pay-per-view, they've already done the match 30 times. So that's why there's never, like, you see all these crazy things. You're like, how do they remember this stuff? This is nuts. But it's because they did that. But we were a fan of that more so. But 01 was more like a strong style league. So when they picked us up, they really liked the fact, the hockey thing, and that me and my brother would fight each other, and we would use the hockey sticks. I mean, they figured the people probably wouldn't understand it too much, but they would get it after they saw it live. And the mistake that first of all, before I go into that, wrestling in Japan is like an amazing experience. It's like you get off the plane and they've got press waiting and following you around with cameras and taking pictures. And the only place they won't follow you is in a restaurant or if you go to the bathroom. But everywhere they're following you. I mean, it's really like rock star. Like, you feel like a rock star. You'll go to eat at a restaurant and there'll be a fan out there that knows who you are already and ask if they could take a picture of you. They'll snap a picture. You'll go in and eat. And I don't know if they have this device in their car. I mean, Japan's like 10 years ahead of us. But you'll come out of the restaurant and they'll have that picture already on like a canvas and ask you to sign it. I mean, it's nuts. It was like, and so you like, fans buy you things. Like, you go, like, you never have to pay for anything because people there know who you are. And our first trip there, we were walking around and everybody would kind of glance at us, but nobody would ever say anything. I mean, they're very, very respectful people. But we just were like, why is everybody like looking at us? Like, this is kind of weird. So everybody had the paper, like they would walk around with the paper because, like, I mean, they're all in their business suits. So we picked up one of those papers and there's this huge article and it's on me and my brother and there's pictures there. So that's why all these people are looking. And we had our hair dyed half red, half white for like, Canada colors. So people obviously knew from that. So that was pretty insane. But the mistake that we made, and hopefully somebody could learn from this, is that, and I'll give an analogy afterwards, is we went there trying to do the strong style. We went there trying to wrestle like the style of 01. They did not want to see that. They wanted to see our hockey stuff. They wanted to see just the strain. Me and my brother would come up with some very interesting spots and things that nobody had ever seen before. Like, we're very, very creative. That's what they wanted to see. But we went there thinking that, oh, well, we need to wrestle like the Japanese people do. And the analogy I'm going to use, I'm going to drop another name here, is we were friends with, he was actually a Ballard Brothers fan, believe it or not. His name is Lars. He's in a band called Rancid. And he used to go watch us in Northern California. He used to even make signs. I mean, this guy's in a huge band, and he would show up to the wrestling show with Ballard Brothers signs. I thought it was a joke, but no, he was really, really serious and really cool guy. Like, he gave us all of his CDs. And we got to become friends with them, and we'd talk to him about Slapshot because he was a big Slapshot fan, a big Slapshot movie fan, and we didn't see him for a long time. And then he found out we were wrestling on a show in Northern California, and at this point we had stopped doing our hockey gimmick. We wanted to look like wrestlers because that's what the WWE wanted. They didn't want us to do the hockey thing anymore, and the Dudley Boys did that. That's another story too, where we hated each other, us and the Dudley Boys. Oh, big heat there. But so he went to watch us wrestle, and he was just like shocked. Like we came out, we didn't have the Chiefs stuff on, we didn't have the foil on, the hockey sticks, the gloves, nothing. And he hadn't seen it for a while, and he's like, man, we're after the show, he was all quiet. We're like, hey, what's the matter? He's like, man, it's just not you. I didn't see the Ballard Brothers out there. I saw just some generic wrestlers. And he goes, let me tell you this. He goes, the band I'm in, Rancid. He goes, we play punk rock music. We've been playing punk rock music for many, many, many years. He goes, right now, R&B is the most popular music on the radio now. So do you think that if we started to try and play R&B, what would happen? He goes, we would lose all of our old fans, and we wouldn't gain any new fans because that's not us. That's not what we do. We would be faking it. He goes, out here, you guys are faking it. He goes, you need to go back and do your hockey gimmick because that is who you guys are. And that made me realize when we went to Japan why we didn't do as well as we should have there is because we went there, we weren't us. We were trying to be something we thought they wanted us to be. And so my advice is just be and do you. Don't try to do something that you think other people are going to want you to do, because you'll never do that at 100%. You'll never be, it'll never come naturally.
Yeah, I think that's a great bit of advice just in life in general, whether it's your career or just, being yourself and being true to yourself. We go through these phases of seeing what's popular and what's working for somebody else, or why, especially in the time of social media when you're dealing with influencers and all this stuff, right? And you're trying to, the next fad. I see it in the martial arts industry, that everybody tries to grab onto the next fad instead of being true to what their values are and what they do best. And I think that's really good advice. Now I got to ask, you brought it up, real heat with Dudley Boys. I mean, was this legit heat, or what's up with that?
Okay, so we're doing a dark match for WWE. It was more like a tryout match, and we're wrestling against actually Aaron Aguilera, who got us there, and his partner, who's was a shoot fighter named Justin McCulley. His wrestling name was Justin Sane. Oh man, those guys, like, talk about stiff. I mean, we would really have to beat each other up because that guy, he thought it was real. So we're in WWE, and at the same time, we're filming a documentary for the Discovery Channel, and they're following different wrestlers in UPW that are under developmental. So they're following my brother and I, and they were following the hardcore kid, and they were following John Cena and a couple different people. So they went up to the show with us. So this camera is going around, and the Dudley Boys kind of got their gimmick from the Hanson brothers from Slapshot, but not really. They just got the glasses with the tape on them, right? But they would wear they'd be like hillbillies, and they'd be wearing tie dye and whatnot. So the only similarities that we had with them was the glasses, and their glasses. I mean, our glasses were real glasses with tape on them, like the Hansons had. Their glasses they had no lenses or anything, and they had tape in the middle. So we're walking to what's called the gorilla position, and that's where you get prepped, and then you walk down the ramp, and your music hits, you come out. That's what the gorilla position is. So we're walking towards there, and the Dudley Boys are walking towards us while we're walking the other way. And Bubba Ray, Devon was cool. It was Bubba Ray, and he's looking at us while we're passing, and we're looking at him I wonder what he's looking at. And we thought he was going to wave and go, oh, cool, and he's just looking, and then he starts shaking his head. And all of a sudden he just beelines back, and we see him going into Vince McMahon's office, makeshift office there. And we're like, I wonder what that was all about. So we do the match. And during the match, actually, it was, since it was for WWE, of course, Aaron and Justin panicked. So we had this spot we were going to do where me and my brother were supposed to get like pushed into each other, but we stop each other, and then they drop kick us and we hit heads. Mm-hmm. Well, we didn't get to stop each other because he drop kicked us before we even stopped, and both our heads hit. So I had to get 8 stitches right after the match by the Shark. This was in San Jose where the Sharks play, by the Sharks doctor, and they had no Novocaine. So he just he put something on there that would like numb the pain, but oh my, that was like excruciating. And so then we get back and we're like, oh yeah, that went, other than the stitches, that went well. We're all happy and excited. And WWE was going to report back to UPW on Wednesday. So Rick Bassman would get the letter and he'd open it up, and in it said that we are no longer allowed to use the Chiefs or the hockey gimmick or the glasses or the tape if we still want to be a part of WWE developmental. So and then it said in there, they are to look like wrestlers. That was like the terminology that was used. That after that we that's when we switched and we just started wearing like, wrestling gear, and we were still us, but we weren't us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, that's crazy. What are some other memorable stories that you have? I mean, you've done, several matches, in the WWE, and just any other experiences that you want to explore and discuss. And by the way, guys, if you're watching live, I'm talking to Shannon Ballard. If you have any questions that you want to ask him, feel free to drop those in the comments, and I'll be happy to let him answer those questions. So if you're watching live, please drop those questions. But I mean, are there some other memorable matches, memorable stories that you want to share?
I'll tell you when we almost died in Mexico. I'll tell you that one. But I'll tell you another thing. Like growing up, sometimes we'd go and we watch wrestling live, and it would be at the Fabulous Forum here. It was in Inglewood, California. And one of our favorite, like we loved tag team wrestling. We love, like, and some of our favorites were like Midnight Express, the Rock and Roll Express, and the Road Warriors. And I remember one time we were at the Forum, and the Road Warrior, we were like right above the tunnel where they come out, and the Road Warriors were there, and a bunch of people were waving, and somebody wanted to meet them, and we were like, oh, we want to meet you too. And so they let some other kid come down there and meet him, and they picked him up for a second, then they walked out with the kid. And me and my brother were thinking, man, that would have been so cool if that was us. Oh man, that was amazing. They got to meet the Road Warriors. We were so jealous. And then when we were in UPW, we actually got to wrestle the Road Warriors, and they came out with the makeup on and everything. And literally, like we came out first, of course, and then their music hit, and it was like, what a rush, that song. And then their music would come out, and we're standing across from them in the ring, getting ready to wrestle them. And they are huge. I mean, they are like, they're bigger than you. Like Animal's like 6'5", and Hawk's probably about 6'3.5". But I mean, just still big, really cool guys. And when I was in the ring, I literally had a flashback back to my childhood when I was at the Forum, and I really wanted to, like, I was so jealous of this kid that got to meet him, and I'm thinking, gosh, well, where's that kid at now, and where am I? Like, I'm literally in the ring getting ready to wrestle these guys. It was like, and it was just, it put a smile on my face. I was like, wow, this is, this is amazing.
Yeah. Well, how cool is that? So tell me this. Actually, well, here, let's ask this question, because we got Danielle is watching, and she says, do you have any favorite people that you've wrestled in California?
That I've wrestled in California. Well, there's a lot of, like, that's a tough question, because there's a lot of like favorite people. Like one of our favorite leagues was Big Time Wrestling up in Northern California, and we met a lot of amazing people up there and got to wrestle. There's like Jason Styles. I don't know if you ever heard of them, and like Shane Cody and those guys. They've been around there forever. They're pretty amazing guys, and it's just like
Hmm.
we still like my brother's pretty much retired, but he'll come out for different matches. We actually started wrestling again. If you will. We were actually that Legends night that you had. We're actually going to. We weren't going to tell. Well, we were going to tell Paul, but we were going to actually go out there and just wrestle somebody and just call it all on the fly.
Oh, nice.
But my son's team, they just started football practice that week, and we were like, so like I was like doing all the work, like figuring out if we'd be able to make it there or not. And I was like, I probably wouldn't be able to make it, but that was my plan. Was we were just going to come in there and just wrestle somebody for the MPW Legends night. But
That would have been cool.
well, the Young Bucks, they were a team out of California that we really helped out, and we were like married to those guys for 2 years. But once they took off, they kind of had forgotten where, who helped them out, and I mean, we don't even talk to them anymore. They don't talk to us. Like, I mean, I would send them random texts like saying, "Hey, Merry Christmas, guys," and they just stopped texting me. So I have no idea what happened or like what's going on in their busy lives. But they were very. We always had good matches with them, and like Frankie Kazarian, we've never had a bad match with Frankie Kazarian. He's out of California.
Yeah.
So there are some people, there. Danielle.
Well, tell us this story then about you said you had a story that you almost died in Mexico.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So this is all true story. It sounds like maybe you're watching a Quentin Tarantino movie, but this all like legit happened. So we were going in Mexico. We were known as Los Rojos Locos, which is like the crazy redhead. And there was this place in Mexicali, and it used to be like a rich wrestling history, and they had a coliseum, like an outdoor coliseum. It sat like maybe like, I don't know, 900 or between 500 and 1,000 people. And like over the years, it became more like just an independent type thing where they wouldn't fill it up, and they just there's a local guy there who had been there like his whole life. I mean, he was like the town hero, but nobody really wanted to see this guy much anymore. So there was this referee from California that said, "Hey, you and your brother should go there, man. You guys get a lot of heat." Now he just means like people dislike you, and it's you get the crowd to boo you. Like that's for the non-wrestling fans, if there are any out there. That's what heat means. It means you don't. It means they don't like you. And sometimes it takes there's a guy at Gino you had on, he gets good heat. He's one of the guys. He knows how to do it. There's a few people out there that can do it. Me and my brother are we cherish the fact that we're able to get heat very easy. It's a lot easier to get someone to dislike you than to get someone to like you. That's what I've learned. So this referee brought us out there, and we did the show, and they promoted it all. The Reds are coming, the Crazy Reds are coming. They had a really good turnout, and this referee, he lived there in Mexicali, and he lived in California, so he would work down here, and he would go down there to get to like his family lived there, so he'd give them their like he would give them the money and whatnot. So he said, hey, he wanted us to pay him for getting us on this show. And we're like, well, no, I mean, we're not really making that much, but we'll give you a ride down there, and we'll take you out to dinner, and we'll, so he was like, all right. So we did this 2 times, and each time we went, the crowd got we got so much heat, like the crowd literally hated us. So we were wrestling against this hometown guy, and all of a sudden he started getting relevant again. So the promoter was like, "Oh, we want to do this send off. We want to do a third match, and like it's going to be huge." And so they ended up selling the place out. So we're going up there for this third match. Now this is where things get. So the first 2 times we went, everything was smooth because the referee went with us, and we drove into Mexicali. And my brother just had he bought a new Pontiac G6. Remember those songs? I think they made a song out of that. And so he was very, 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 but it's the only car that had like American plates on it, and like Mexicali was very like a lot of dirt roads. I mean, it's a very dangerous place there. And so the referee, we would drive him to his place first, and then we go to the show in Mexicali, and then we drive him back to his place for him to hang out for a while. Then we would drive home, and we had jobs we had to be at 7:30 in the morning. So on the third one, the referee thought that we were making a lot more money than we were, because the promoter paid us in all ones at this show, and so he just saw this wad of cash and he wanted some of it. And we're like, no, like, so he ended up, like, when we went to pick him up for the third show, he didn't even show up. So me and my brother had to drive to Mexicali on our own. We had no idea where the arena even was. And we had the promoter's phone number. So we're like trying to call him the whole way up there. He's not answering. We're stopping at like pay phones, because we had our flip phones and they weren't working very well at the time. So we get into Mexico, and I'm like, okay, Mexicali, and there's a payphone, and I'm like, okay, look, stop at that payphone. I'm going to call the promoter. So I get on the phone, and I'm calling, and the guy answers. I'm like, hey, this is where we're at. We don't know where to go. We're stuck. Can you help us? And then right then, this gang like comes out, and they see me in the phone booth. And I was just like, oh, I got to go. So I hung up, and they started pulling out, they had knives, and they were trying to rob me. And I was like, oh, and my brother saw what was going on, but he didn't want to run. I mean, there was like probably 6 of them. And there might have been 8. And so I'm like, oh man. So I noticed that my brother opens the passenger door, and I heard him go, come on, come on. So I just start swinging at these guys and kicking and whatever I can. And they're backing up, and they're swiping with the knives, and I'm backing up. And so I didn't want any of them to get behind me, because if they would have got behind me, that would have been it. So I just keep backing, backing, back. And then I did like a flurry, and then just opened the door and got in. My brother just took off. And I mean, we're driving down this dirt road. We don't know where we're going. And then this truck, a pickup truck, pulls up and cuts us off. And I'm just like, oh shoot, we're dead. And then we get out, it's a promoter, and he's like, follow me, follow me. So we follow him. We get to the arena finally. And I mean, this thing, it's in the middle of the summer. So it's like 108 degrees, and everything is dirt there. And the ring is like, there's tires under there. There's no spring, it's tires, and it's wood. And then it's a layer of carpet. There's no pad. So if you ever wonder why a lot of those luchadors don't bump, they just kind of roll, it's because most of the rings in Mexico were like that. So we thought, okay, we're finally out, like good, we're finally out of hot water. So we get to the show, and we're talking to the guy, and the guy that we're wrestling, like, he's literally the hometown hero. Like I said, he's been wrestling there since he was like 13, and he's like 60 now or something. So he wore a mask. He had never lost his mask. So he came up to me. He said, I want you to take my mask off tonight. That's how we're going to win. We're going to get disqualified because you're going to take my mask off. And I was like, are you sure that's a good idea? And I mean, we already had so much heat. It was disgusting. When we would be out there. Another reason why that referee didn't want to do or left us is because the show before, people were so angry at us, they would pee in cups. Right, like beer cups, and they would throw the cups at us in the ring. So one cup, the match before, one cup was coming right at my head. At the last second I move, the referee's right behind me, gets doused with it.
Terrible.
Literally. I mean, I'm almost gagging now just remembering the smell of that. So that was like a thing they would do to us, is they would do it because they hated us so much. They they hated us. So we did the match, and we had this match was fantastic. I mean, the crowd was going nuts. And then all of a sudden the guy like gives me I give him a sunset flip. He's not going down, not going down, not going down. So I reach up and pull the mask off, and literally you could hear a pin drop in the place. Then the
Wow.
guy's son comes running out like to put a towel over his head, like, I mean, that was supposed to happen. And the people all of a sudden, they just like something snapped inside of them. They started jumping over the rail. And this is like they've got maybe 2 or 3 security guards, and one of them is watching our car. So people started breaking bottles and come out, like I got cut. They were trying to get in the ring. Me and my brother were able to, like a lot of the wrestlers in the back saw what was going on, so they ran out to form like a line so we could run back in the locker room. Now the locker rooms there's 2 doors, right? It's one room, but it looks like the room is separated by 2 doors. There's one for the heels or the rudos, and then one door for the technicos. But it's all just one room. So we ran in there, and like all of a sudden we shut the door, and all the wrestlers are putting stuff against the door, and people are literally banging on the door trying to get it down.
Wow.
Like, and the door is like it's coming off the hinges, and I mean it was like a movie. Like I was in such shock. I was like, this can't be real. And the door is like coming off the hinges, and all the wrestlers are got their backs against it, and they're trying to prop against the door. So what we did was we went around to the other side where the other door was, and they sent some people out to kind of distract them, and then we literally just had to grab our bags and run to our car and throw it in there. And like the somebody called like the police, so the police finally came. And we luckily, I mean, we made it back to the car, got in there, and then my brother was like, he just stopped, and he was like, oh my gosh, it looked like somebody spray painted the whole car with like just derogatory remarks, right?
Oh man.
But what it was they just took dirt rocks and wrote all over the car, like all kinds of like bad words in Spanish, like some horrible things. And then like we were taking off, and they're literally jumping on top of the car. I tell you, it was like it's a true story, but it was like a movie.
That's
And
crazy.
and we didn't even know our way back. We just drove. And we finally went back to the border, right? And we had to work at 7:30 the next morning, and we're hot, and you've got like urine and spit and feces that they're throwing at you. Like, I mean, so we're just like, I mean, we're just a mess. All we want to do is go home and take a shower. And
That's insane.
we get to the border, and then they won't let us cross because they thought that from the things that were written on the car that it was a drug deal, that we went there to sell drugs. It was a drug deal that went bad. So they detained us. They handcuffed us to there was like the border patrol. They handcuffed us to like chairs and interrogated us. They tore the whole car apart, sent the dogs in there sniffing, looking for drugs. And I kept telling them, no, we're wrestlers. So finally, I was like, let me just show you our gear. And I showed
Hmm.
them the wrestling gear. And then finally, they let us go. And we didn't have time to go home and take a shower. We had to drive all the way straight because it's like a 3.5 hour drive. We had to go to work. We were like 45 minutes late for work, and we had to work the whole day, smelling of urine and
Well, so let me ask you this: did you ever
uh,
go back to Mexico and wrestle
no,
again?
that was the
That was the last time.
last time. Well, that guy begged us to come back because it was just like the crowd. He said the crowd had never been bigger, and that it was like begged. It's like, no, my life is a little more important than that. I mean, literally, like, I mean, like we're both bleeding from people getting in, like sweat, and they literally they would if they would have got their hands on us, they would. I have no doubt that we would have been buried somewhere in Mexico right now,
Wow.
because they were like that door was literally coming off the hinges, and they were all just smashing against it.
Oh man. Well, as we wrap this up, we got about 5 minutes left. Um,
I told her you shouldn't get me talking about these
it's
old.
okay. It's a good story. It's a good story. I know a lot of people love hearing it, especially professional wrestlers love to sit and listen to stories. And one of my favorite things about that I talk about with martial arts is I used to love just listening to stories from my
Yeah.
instructors of their experiences. So I know that someone's going to love that story. But what I think that I want to talk about too before we go is there's a lot of people that try to break into the wrestling industry, and it is, as you said earlier, very cutthroat business. You think people are your friends, and as you get deeper into it, I can only imagine, just like any other sport or anything else, like you talked about politics and just being really hard. You know,
Yeah.
can you, this might be tough, but I mean, what do you think was the biggest factor that kept you from quote unquote making it to WWE and wrestling, as a full career, or any other bigger company? We use the WWE as the top, but
Yeah.
what prevented you from that?
I would say probably two things: size and age. Like WWE is looking for. I mean, it's like anything. Like, I mean, we didn't start till we were 28. So I mean, by the time we got picked up by them, we were already 30, and they're like saying, like, 30 is like, it's like an age that I mean, like, it'd be like an NFL team going and getting a 30. I mean, they want the youth. That's what they're,
Hmm.
they try to get as much as they can from you. So they don't think a 30-year-old could give them, as much time as someone younger. So I would say it was those two factors. I mean, I definitely think that we had the talent, we had good minds for it. We were well respected and well liked among the community. And there was a moment where probably a quarter of the roster we trained in WWE. So it was just that. But I would say me and my brother never made WWE like our goal. Like, we would hear stories from Alex Knight about how he got to travel, and he would come home and there'd be a ticket to Hawaii so he could go wrestle. And so our thing was we wanted to be able to travel and to influence people and to meet these people and have some sort of impact or effect on their lives, where we could enrich their lives somehow, or help them learn, or whatnot. So WWE like, I mean, we've done WWE and TNA in Japan. I mean, we've gotten to travel all over the world, which was fantastic. And that was more our goal, was to travel and to meet people and
Hmm.
to leave to have an impact on the sport. And like the style that we brought, like at the time it was like us and these guys called the SAT. We were like the innovators of like tag wrestling for a while. And so a lot of people used a lot of spots and a lot of things that we did, which is like flattering in one end, and then it's not, but a lot of times they wouldn't give you credit for it. So it's frustrating at the same time. But so yeah, WWE wasn't like, and that's why I say, like, you're never too old to chase your dreams. We were 28, and we got to do exactly what we wanted to. I mean, there were places I mean, like, I could tell you other stories that there are places we've got to see, and things that most people never be able to see. And we were paid for it, and we were there amongst friends and people that we respected. So that was a wonderful thing.
Was there anybody? Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I listened to, you had Chris Casamassa on,
Hmm.
with he's actually my son. Like, my son, he's my son's a black belt. He's going to be a second degree black belt at a Red Dragon Karate. So I was
Hmm.
listening to that. So yeah, he beats me up now. He's and you're also doing football too, right?
I'm sorry.
Something. Do you also do something with football?
My son played youth football from the time he was about 11 years old, all the way into high school, and he
Oh,
transitioned into wrestling,
oh,
and really his hopes and goals are along the lines of MMA and fighting
oh,
and
no.
stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, definitely had a background, a lot of fun in youth football. He played baseball
Yeah,
for over 10 years as well. So I loved coaching youth sports, being a
yeah,
martial arts instructor my whole life. I
yeah.
love being involved in youth sports, and I
Oh,
know I know that you do with your son as well.
yeah. Yeah, he's actually working, like, John Burroughs is over there by you, right? John Burroughs High. He's working with the quarterback coach and the offensive coordinator there. So every Saturday morning we got to get up at 6, make that
Yeah,
drive there. But I remember my dad, when we played hockey, the only ice time they had was at 5 a.m. So we'd have to leave the house at 4:30. So I guess I can't complain too much.
right. Hey, was there anybody that you ever wanted to wrestle but never got to?
Um, Yeah, like the Midnight Express was like, me and my brother, we like patterned our tag team wrestling from those guys, and it would have been amazing. We got to meet Bobby Eaton from the Midnight Express, and we actually gave him a Ballard Brothers shirt that he wore quite often. He's passed away since, but the Midnight Express were one. We also would have liked the Rock and Roll Express were a team that we really wanted to wrestle. And we did shows with them, but we never actually got to wrestle against them. So those are two that we really wish. I mean, the Midnight Express will never happen because they're gone. But the Rock and Roll Express, you never know.
Yeah. Now you mentioned quite a few names throughout the podcast. John Cena being probably the biggest name that you mentioned, but you did train a lot of guys. Who are some of the other guys that are wrestling now that you trained back in the day?
The Miz is still going strong. Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe wasn't like he was trained by Cincinnati Red, but then after a while we kind of took over for that, and then he would come out. But him, who was it? Her name was Tara, and then she was also Victoria. I think it was, Victoria in WWE. She was one of our students. Cheerleader Melissa, who I don't think is even wrestling. She might be doing stuff here and there. She was Raisha Saeed, I think, in TNA. She was we developed her. So yeah, there was a lot. I'm trying to think of who else that's still relevant right now. There's a guy named Ezekiel. I don't think he's wrestling anymore either. But John Morrison, we helped out a little bit too.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Miz and Morrison, they used to just steal all our tag moves. But they would admit it. So,
yeah.
The Miz would text and say, "Hey, we're going to use this one tonight." I'd be like, "Yeah, all right."
Last question for you: what is your advice for young wrestlers, up and coming guys that are trying to break in? They're on the independent level and they really want to make it to that next level. What's your best bit of advice for them?
Stick to it, and you're never going to get to the next level. This is something that I tell my son about. Like he plays quarterback, and I'm like, with karate, he fell behind because he was doing both. He kind of fell behind a little bit because he wasn't practicing karate at home. He was like he was more interested in the football. Like, I mean, kids get like that. He still loves karate, but with this, like, he wasn't able to make any of the classes because they all were like his football practice was the same time as karate was. So, but what I told him that I would tell them is, like, you've got to it's got to be a passion, and you've got to love it. It can't be work. Like, when we played hockey, me and my brother, and we had two twins that lived next door, we would play. As soon as we got out of school, we would literally run home, get our hockey stuff on, and play in the street until till it got dark. And then we would move the goalie net underneath the street light, and then we would play right there until it was time to come in. And it was never work. It was never difficult. It was never forced. It was something that we loved and we wanted to do. So if you want to get to that next level, you will achieve it just by doing it every day, or as much as you can, and but like studying it, it's like it's your craft, like go out there, like watch matches, watch other people, but don't emulate them. You don't need to copy anybody. Just watch them and see what they do, and learn how to tell a story. And that'll like, we're 52 and we're still able to do it because we're able to tell a story. If we were out there doing spots, I mean, I was like, I'd be done. I'd be walking with a cane right now. So yeah, just if you want to get better, make it your passion, and really enjoy it, and it'll never feel like work. It'll just be like you'll just do it. It's a habit.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, I can definitely relate to that and agree with that, because I've been teaching martial arts for almost 35 years. Well, I've been practicing martial arts for almost 35 years, and man, it never feels like work. I've never said, "Oh, I have to go to work today." Like, I get excited to come in. So I can't agree with that more, and just follow your passion and live your passion. So Shannon, thank you for being on the show today. Really appreciate your time. I would love to have you on a future show. Something I'll be working on in 2023 is I'll be doing some roundtable type podcasts where I get, maybe 3, 4 professional wrestlers and we can talk a little bit or different genres, different groups. So
Right.
would love to have you back again.
Yeah, me and my brother could just beat each other up for the whole time on the podcast and see which one falls first.
Yeah, that would be great. Well, hey, listen, stick around for just about 60 seconds as this video plays. And thank you to everybody that watched here live today. If you enjoyed this podcast, please make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow me on social media, and share the videos so that other people can enjoy them as well. And again, once again, thank you so much, Shannon Ballard.
All right. I will stick around.
Stick around. All right, guys, we'll see you next time for the next interview on Master Motivation. Take care.